In many ways, Unicorn Overlord is like a dream come true. This game is a beautiful modern take on and a continuation of the Ogre Battle series, with some of Vanillaware's best artwork, beautiful music, and just overall great tactical gameplay. Let me just say this right away. If you like squad-based tactics games and don't care too much about story or writing in general, this game will be a blast for you. Why I think that is? Well, let's go into detail a little, shall we? So, what do you do in this beautiful world created by the team that brought us amazing titles like Dragon's Crown, Odin's Sphere, and 13 Sentinels? Well, you take control of a dapper young prince fighting to liberate his home country after it was conquered by a foreign army. The lands of Cornia, or should I say Unicornia, sorry for that, are ravaged by the Xenoirans, a brutal and reckless group of imperialists with exactly one goal in mind: conquest. The Prince of Cornia, Elheim, will have none of that, however, and makes it his personal quest to fight Xenoira and win back his kingdom. How do you do that? Well, you walk around the huge world map, going from town to town, while fighting your way through the world of Fevrith to thwart the evil empire and free the world, basically. On your way, you meet a bunch of people that you can recruit for your cause. The basic game loop goes something like this. You enter a town occupied by enemy forces. A cutscene plays showing the leader of the enemy army talking about something important to them, like how they are going to prove to the evil empire how important they are by committing some truly evil deed or whatever. Then you enter the town, assemble your squad of fighters, defeat the enemy, and get another cutscene. Here, sometimes you get to decide whether to recruit the defeated ruffian or to execute them. The liberated town can then be rebuilt by using resources you find lying around in the world, like wood, stone, fish, you know, the usual. You can even appoint a governor for each town from your roster of characters. That's pretty much how you spend most of your time in Unicorn Overlord. Go from town to town, fight your way through, recruit some characters, rinse and repeat. The main draw of the game lies in its combat system. I have sunk so many hours into this because it's just that addicting. In short, it works like a strange but somehow lovely combination of the Ogre Battle squad-based combat sprinkled with a little bit of Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system. I can't think of any way of saying this other than this system is kind of insane. For each and every situation during battle, you can specifically determine how characters in your squad are supposed to act. When the action eventually happens, it all plays out in an auto battle sequence according to your specifications in the Gambit system. Characters of different classes have their own unique abilities, but can also gain additional skills from items that you can equip. In the Gambit system, you then specify which actions your individual fighters are supposed to perform given certain conditions. You hereby have active and passive skills represented by AP and PP, and have to conduct a cost-benefit calculation when choosing those skills. There's so much variety here, it's absolutely crazy to me. You can spend literal hours in this game figuring out how characters and their abilities complement each other, what the best squad composition is, and so on. On the higher difficulty levels, you absolutely have to do that. Each battle represents a unique challenge here, and you will spend a lot of time figuring out the right strategy by assembling and disassembling squads left and right. Let me just tell you that if you're a min-max kind of person, this game could be like crack to you. Be warned though that Unicorn Overlord really makes you spend a ton of time in those menus. If that's a deal breaker for you, I don't think this game will have anything to offer. In principle, Unicorn Overlord is an open world / open area game that opens up after you have completed the tutorial and explored the first area for a bit. The exploration of the world takes place in a top-down overworld view and gives you the freedom to venture into any direction you wish. As the game is very much focused on the combat, the world is designed to facilitate that. On enemy territory, troops are patrolling the area and you have to be cautious with your approach and have to strategize which enemies you want to take on and which may be a bit out of your league at that time. Before each fight, the game tells you the average level of enemies in a hostile squad, which gives you a good estimation of how hard the battle will be. The cool thing is that you can absolutely take on battles that are way out of your level range and still prevail if you apply suitable tactics. Even on a higher difficulty level, you can kind of sequence break the game if you want to, and you're good enough. In a weird way, that reminded me of the Gothic series, where you can also freely explore the world from the get-go, but have a clearly intended way to follow. It's up to you if you're looking for that extra challenge, or if you just want to follow the game's guidance. In addition to liberating towns and fighting enemy patrols, the open world offers a lot of activities that are pretty generic, standard, open world stuff. You can find treasures, solve some minor side quests, catch a bunch of chickens, milk goats, and so on. There are some quote-unquote secrets to find here, but they're really not worth being called that. It's just question marks on your map for you to check. I honestly felt like most of the activities outside of combat were just fluff, designed to give you a quick dopamine hit when gathering resources or finding hidden treasure. It really is all about the combat for me, and that's where the fun lies. Let me come out and just say straight away that the writing in Unicorn Overlord is the one big weakness for me. Everything is just so bland and uninspired. I basically stopped caring about anything story-wise after a couple of hours. Honestly, I didn't even expect much from the game in this department, but I still can't help but feel pretty let down nonetheless. The plot is so generic and straightforward, it really is the most formulaic fantasy tale imaginable. It does get a bit more interesting towards the end, but man, it really comes down to just rebel army overthrows evil empire, and that's all it is. There's no interesting twists and turns, there's no complex political intrigue or schemes that are being hatched behind closed curtains or anything. It's all very shallow and basic. That would be fine by me if the character writing was more interesting. After all, most Fire Emblem games have a pretty generic plot, and I love those games nonetheless. Why? Because they have cool and interesting characters. Some are more on the humorous side, some are pretty multi-layered, some are just quirky or whatever, but at least in a good Fire Emblem, they are all interesting in their own way. Now, don't get me wrong, Unicorn Overlord has some potential in this respect. I do think that some characters, especially those close to the protagonist like Scarlet, Lex, Chloe and Joseph, could have been great. There are scenes between some of these characters that shine a light onto their personality, their past, their trauma and development, but for the most part, the game just doesn't do anything with them. There's no character arcs or hard-hitting scenes or conflict that would have me take a side or something. That was a huge bummer for me. I don't mind a somewhat middling plot in a tactics game, but mid-characters? That's rough. Overall, you just shouldn't expect too much in the writing department. None of it is outrageously bad, like in Fire Emblem Engage for instance, but it's just a very standard, generic fantasy affair. Also, quick side note, fuck Atlas for sticking to their heteronormative bullshit in a game where you can marry your cousin, but that's beside the point. This is a Vanillaware game, and so, to absolutely no one's surprise, Unicorn Overlord is stunningly beautiful. This game has some of Vanillaware's best visual designs in my opinion. Yes, the character designs are a bit more tame than in something like Dragon's Crown, but I found them very fitting to this world. It's a bit unsettling that literally every person in this world is a supermodel and would easily win a beauty contest, but hey, that's fantasy for you, I guess. There were so many times when I thought I had found the most gorgeous character in the game, only to meet yet another outrageously attractive elf in the next town over. Let me just say that for every preference you may have, Unicorn Overlord has you covered. From slender elf girls to bulky snoo fighters, all the way to anthropomorphic wolf ladies, I'm sure you will find someone to your liking in the world of Fevrith. Beauty is all around, as they say. The same goes for the background designs that you see during cutscenes. You have your typical medieval European towns, your high elf woods, Viking-inspired cities, Gothic cathedrals, and so on. It's all so very pretty. Same goes for the music and overall sound design. I don't think that Vanillaware, or their contractor Base Escape, have ever disappointed in this area, and the same holds true for this game. Every continent has its own musical theme and style. At night, the music changes, and no matter where you are, it's all very atmospheric and beautiful. Especially the music in Albion, one of the later regions in the game, is just my kind of jam. I think it's a kind of fateful irony that Base Escape, the music company founded by Hitoshi Sakimoto, is making the music for this game. As some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy Tactics and the Ivalice games overall. Part of what makes these games so incredible is the music, composed by none other than Hitoshi Sakimoto, who also worked on the Ogre Battle / Tactics Ogre series. To see his studio produce music for the spiritual successor of these games filled my heart with joy. Although he didn't personally work on it, his influences are clearly audible, and I can't express how much I love that. This could have been a top 20 games of all time title for me. If the creators had put a little more effort into the writing, be it by providing a gripping narrative or interesting world building or charming characters, I think Unicorn Overlord would be a masterpiece. If only they had gotten Yasumi Matsuno as a writer, I can only imagine how amazing this game would have turned out. The way it stands now, it's still a fantastic game and a really interesting take on the Ogre Battle formula and on tactics games in general. It's beautiful, it's fun, and it has some of the most intricate gameplay I've seen in a tactics game in a long time. If you're on the fence of whether this can live up to the hype, don't be. It's one of the best of its kind. Just don't expect anything too fancy with regards to the narrative. Thank you for your attention.